6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. At this time, roll call, please.
Supervisor Gens.
Here.
Nudo.
Yep.
Brookhouse.
Here.
Gama.
Here.
Gashke.
Here.
Pearson.
Here.
Kirby. Here. Yig member Charlotte. Yig member Sasha. Here.
Okay. This time we'll open the meeting up to citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Seeing none, citizens' comments are closed. Reports from the chairman and election of a second vice chair. I'll do my comments first. But I want to talk a little bit about our budget hearings that are coming up. Vice Chair Gashke and Supervisor Gearston will remember way back when, and even maybe Supervisor Nudo, Supervisor Rose used to have where we have the staff come in and we vote individually on each budget piece. And then at the end, we could all change that when the staff isn't there. I found that disingenuous. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna vote on each individual item, but if you have a problem, bring it up then. I'm not gonna say you can't bring it up at the end when we do it, but you need to let me know so I can have staff here. Otherwise, I'll just not acknowledge it and we'll have another meeting. Because I think it's only fair to have staff here to explain what you're doing to their budget. So if you have issues, should be done when they're presenting to you, not when they're not here on the last night when nobody's around. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So that's the way we're gonna do it. If anybody has a problem with that or a question about that, please let me know, but that's how we're gonna do it. The other thing is I've been talked to the chair and instructed certain chairs that we're not gonna have amendments coming from the committees that don't have money to back them up. So just arbitrarily raise something 30 grand and then not have a way to pay for it or offset. So I asked them to come up with the money. So just so you know, that's a view I've taken. And we'll see what comes before the committee and you all can decide, but that's in my opinion, I think that we should make sure that if someone's raising it, they're getting it from somewhere. Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion for a second vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to nominate Sarah as our second vice chair.
A nomination by Supervisor Gearston. Is there a second to nominate? Second by Supervisor Nudo to nominate Supervisor Kirby as second vice chair. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I saw you vote aye, so I don't have to ask you. All right, very good. That business is done. Reports from the committee. Any reports? Supervisor Gearston, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We went to Wisconsin Counties Association and it was a really good, worthwhile endeavor. And there's lots of things we could talk endlessly. I promise I won't, but on Monday they had at 2:15, they had a Department of Revenue report that talked about these innovation grants. And I guess there's some changes to these innovation grants, but the reason I give the time is you can look online, all the handouts that are there and to contact people. But it just from the comments and around the room, we still haven't found a way to latch on and get this money. I mean, if you can find a way to get a lot of grant money to face new programs in, but it just, a lot of the finance people, it was all filled up with finance people. They're having trouble finding a way to tap into this money. It has the hurdles seem hard to overcome, but I just want to make you aware that they talked about some changes to the program there. On Monday, they had at 3:30, they had a session on tax deed. And I think I saw the county clerk there and several other supervisors were there, and it showed up even with these new laws, there's some flexibility. And so there may be a little bit of light on the process there that maybe we can, and I think we might even be considering some of that tonight. And then on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, they had a really good one on the economy. We could talk forever, but Dale Knapp from Forward Analytics talked, and basically by 2050, we'll start having a decline here because we're not getting enough young people. But so that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing I wanted to talk about is during the budget, we have lots of documents we have to sign. We have budget documents, we have bond documents, and back in my day, we had to sign dozens of documents. Now we've streamlined that, we have less, but I still think it's appropriate that I did pick up some extra pens if anybody wants a pen. Does anyone want a pen? They're really nice.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have the same. I'll take one.
Anybody else?
No, yeah,
Mhm.
there.
Well, let me, okay, one
I'll
more.
never
Okay,
turn down
I got one more. This one's used, but you can have.
She's gonna have to pay less for that. Supervisor Garrison.
And then I-
It's been used.
This
There's
is
this
nice.
beautiful, I already have one, but there's a beautiful state of Wisconsin pin if anybody wants a state of Wisconsin pin.
I already
take
have
it.
mine.
Oh, okay. Sweet, thanks, man. And that concludes my comments.
Boy, it's like a yard sale.
Make sure you.
All right, thank you Supervisor Geertsen. Any other, reports from the committee? Seeing none, approval of the minutes, September 12th, 2024.
So move.
Second, moved by Supervisor Geertsen, second by Supervisor Gama. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those pass unanimously. Discussion on the ceremonial courtroom, Patty.
At the last meeting.
Why did you laugh?
I mean, at the last meeing, the committee requested information on the impact on the taxpayer of the funds for the ceremonial court. So I think there's enough there. I tried to keep this as simple as possible. We did reach out to Ellers and ask them to give us the estimated debt service costs on borrowing the funds that we would be looking to borrow. And we broke them down, based on the phases so that we could get a handle on the parts that we have to do anyway versus the parts that are the historical restoration. Some have referred to it as the wants versus the needs. The top part just summarizes those, and those numbers tie into the CIP. If you look at that, you'll see that they tie in. You'll notice that there are two lines for phase one, and that's because phase one consists of the HVAC work, which we would have to do anyway. And also the historical restoration of the ceiling, the stained glass, things like that, that are up above. Phase two is historical. That is from the ceiling to the wainscoting. Phase three is the wainscoting down, the carpeting, things like that. Those are things we would have to do anyway. We would do in a normal courtroom restoration. And then phase four is the judge's room in the back. So I have the items in green are those that we would have to do regardless, and the items in yellow are the historical components. Looking at the next section down, we asked Ellers to give us both the breakdown if we issued the notes for
Mr.
tenure.
Chairman, can I pause, Patty? So you're saying that 1.8 million is the number for the historical part?
Yes,
Okay.
that's net of the contributions.
That's out of the contribution. Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you. That's my question.
Can,
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to ask a question as you go along or wait till the end.
Go ahead.
Okay, Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
Okay. You have in there, on the revenue offset,
Yes,
$75,000. What
that's
that?
the economies of scale. So we had talked about that. There's a combination of two things. One is an estimate of $100,000 of additional revenue coming in donations. It could be higher, could be lower. And also the economies of scale by doing all of the project at once. The people are there on site and there are savings involved versus we do this section and then next year we have them come back and do this section. So that's reflected in that,
Okay, so it's not really revenue coming in, but it's a saving.
the savings. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
So in the second section, we had asked Ellers for both a breakdown if we issued the notes for 10 years and if we issued the notes for 20 years. We had discussed 20 years at the last meeting, but I thought having both would be helpful. Because we would have the option. It is a large, it's a building project. It would qualify for 20-year notes, but 10-year notes tend to be the direction we go in the county to keep the amortization faster. We've compiled the information that they gave us. You can see phase one, we need to do this part, phase one, the historical part, phase two, phase three, and phase four. We broke it down with a per year average for each of those. Total on the 10-year notes, the per year average of debt service is $508,677. The component that is historical is $220,128. And the component that is what we would have to do is $288,548. I then carried that across to say, what is that tax per $1,000 of equalized value? And you can see that it is less than a penny for the historical and a little over a penny for the non-historical. Tax on $100,000 home would be 90 cents for the historical, $1.18 on the not. The tax on an average house, which currently is at $282,000, would be $2.53 for the historical component, $3.32 for what we have to do anyway. So I added those up. I even then multiplied it out. So over the 10 years on an average home, it would be $58.54. Now, I didn't do any present value calculations or estimates of where values of houses are gonna go or what are equal. I didn't do any of that. I just kept it pretty simple. So the second section is if we issued the notes over 20 years. So if you go over to the total borrowing, it would be debt service would be $307,528 per year. $133,143 is the historical component, $174,386 is the non. In this scenario, the debt service per thousand of equalized value, the tax impact is less than a cent on both. 54 cents for the historical part on $100,000 home or 71 cents on for what we have to do. And $1.53 on tax on the average home of $282,000. That's the historical component, $2.01 for what we have to do. Total of $3.54 or over 20 years, $70.78 impact on the taxpayer.
Any questions? Supervisor Kirby.
So what was the interest rate that you used for the notes or an average?
It kind of averaged, actually kind of broke out year by year.
Yeah,
Between it, even on the 20-year, they were in the 3% range.
okay,
10-year notes were started a little bit lower than that and went, I think, touched 3%. The 20 years were a little closer to 3%, 2 something, 9 something,
Okay.
and but in that range, it
Okay.
still stayed within that. That is what their prediction would be for debt we would issue next year.
okay.
Anything else? Supervisor Gears.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if I understand right, the most likely we would fund it is the 20 years, and we're looking at half a penny. Do I understand that right? Half a penny on the mill rate,
Yes,
half a penny.
half a penny, the 0.0054. Yes.
So half a penny, that was the thing I just wanted to be sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
But on an average home, you're looking at the whole thing costing $3.54.
Per year, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Should have taken some time. Supervisor Noodle,
Are you okay?
I'll be okay. I mean, just give me a minute to recover. Okay, you're
1,
up.
2, 3.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, just a question is, I know over the years from when we started, almost every year, the numbers have changed. Now, this last time, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we say that this should be the final numbers with no expected changes.
Yes.
How do we look from the last time we talked about it to today? Are there gonna be any other surprises where instead of the X amount that we come up with now, is that gonna increase? Which that would take everything on this year off.
Right, I have not heard anything about any.
So we should be pretty much on, if anybody knows it, pretty much in line with what we had talked about.
And there is contingency built.
How much?
There's, yeah,
It's about 10 to 11%.
How much is that?
I believe.
well, over 7 million, whatever, so it's
Right.
probably about 700,000, 800,000.
Yes.
And going back at what I asked of the 75,000, was there might be some extra, well, should be extra money, maybe some more donations coming in there with that, which by the way, I want to congratulate them, really. They did a great job, whoever's in the committee. I'm not really sure of everybody. I know that Judge Mary Kay is with the committee and John Collins. They did a great job and congratulate them for. I had my doubts that they were gonna do it, but you guys did, more power to you. So, okay, that's all I have.
I had. Well. I still think this is a. I'm not gonna vote against it. I mean, you've broken it down to the ridiculous, so I get it. You almost can't argue with that, but. I'm in the middle of a rant, you can't.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Supervisor Brookhouse, go ahead.
Did I hear that preference was 10 years and you're saying 20? What
What the preference is, typically as a county, we go on 10. That's been our practice, but we could go on 20. It depends what the money looks like, what the rates are, what the situation is at the time. I mean, we're not committing to either way right now. They're giving us an estimate of what this could be.
Sure. Okay, very good. I'm good, thanks.
Okay. All right, I'm not gonna argue about this. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who put in the work. All right. Moving on. Public Works, resolution to accept the Community Development Block Grant to support the 2024 Kemper Center Building Exterior Restoration Project.
Good evening.
I didn't even say Shelley and she appeared at the head of the table. What are you, a ninja? What's going on here? All right.
Shelley Billingsley, Public Works and Development Services. We have been applied for and awarded a community development block grant in $22,627 to support our Kemper Center exterior restoration project in 2024. This is part of our created comprehensive 10-year plan, which was our competing aspect of getting this grant. We also are applying again for 2025, but this will be the actual award acceptance for the 22,000.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the community development block grant.
Second. Moved by Vice Chair Gaske, second by Supervisor Gearston to approve. Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. I will be asking you in January to come in and go over Kemper. So I don't know if that's Parks or you, but probably both combined. To come in and go over where we are, interior, exterior, the whole ball of wax after we get done thinking on the budget.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Human Services, resolution to approve Health Department ARPA funds for the purchase of a liquid
Chromatography,
mass
spectrometry,
thank you,
spectrometer.
instrument for the laboratory. Thank you for that. You know, way to just hang me out to dry. All right.
It's a sissy. Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Plummer, the health officer. We have ARPA funded health only dollars, health designated only dollars remaining that will expire at the end of 2025. I would like approval to purchase this piece of laboratory equipment. It will allow us to do in-house confirmatory testing on blood alcohol levels, that we ordinarily would have to send to the state lab of hygiene with a turnaround time of 8 to 12 months. With this machine, we could reduce that time frame to 2 to 4 months, helping the judiciary system if they have cases. In addition, this machine would also end us sending any urine drug screen for the court system out for confirmatory testing with a turnaround time of 2 weeks. We could turn that around within 24 hours. It is $380,000. The remaining funds I have are close to $500,000.
Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
Do we need additional manpower or help to run this machine or?
Power, you said?
Yeah.
No.
manpower. So
We
it's
have
gonna
what-
be,
we. Is that the correct answer?
Yes, we have the facilities right now, we're redoing the lab already for the new lab that's coming in on 52nd Street, so we had that already in mind. That was already put in there for the power sources for the laboratories.
We've been attempting to get this piece of instrumentation for several years. So we've been planning, and we just haven't had the funding to do it. So we have the funding. If we don't use this funding, we'll lose it.
So, and has anybody brought up any other good idea to spend this money on?
No. What I was grappling with spending it on is, further temporary staffing for our communicable disease team for nurses. But that's not something that the state would approve for us to do.
Yeah, I would rather spend it on something that's.
Yeah, there are.
Concrete than salaries.
Yeah, there are, because this is ARPA funding or COVID funding, there are parameters that the state had to approve for me to even begin this process, and the state did approve that. It is disparities in the community. You have to tie it to disparities in the community as an output of COVID. And we can tie drug use and abuse to disparities that were worsened through the COVID pandemic.
Any other questions or comments? Supervisor Kirby.
So, and I'm on the Human Services Committee, so I know a little bit about this from that. Because we have that equipment and we'll be, are we the only county in the state that will have this?
We're the only public health department that has a crime lab.
Okay, so
yes.
So,
So
yeah.
we may be able to, in the future, generate revenue by doing testing, this type of testing from Walworth County, Racine County.
Okay,
So yes, it could perhaps be a revenue generator down the road for us.
you read my mind.
Is this a mass spectrometer that is on NCIS?
I don't know. I don't watch that.
All right, I just wanted to clear that up. All right, I need a motion. It's been moved by Supervisor Nudo, second by Supervisor Geertsen. Any questions or comments on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It was almost a nod, but you moved a little bit. I'm watching.
Thank you.
Number 9, Court Counsel, an ordinance amending MCKC 3.63. I know what that is. Granting a former owner the right to repurchase property tax taken by tax team, property taken by tax. John?
Good evening to the committee, evening governance, everyone present. Because of consequential that this 2023 Act, Wisconsin Act 207, the county needs to have an ordinance in place to codify the right to repurchase a tax deeded property by a prior owner. And that's what this ordinance that's before you today would do. I had drafted, and I think there's also in the materials today was just a really short version of this, which I had submitted earlier, and that was just really, really bare bones. And it took, I cleaved to very closely to just the language in the new statute. But after some discussion with other counties through their corp councils and also with the Wisconsin Counties Association, Andy Phillips and the good people that are with WCA, it was decided to try and be uniform among all the counties with an ordinance that would look very similar or the same. And thus there was a working group put together. I was one of the members of that working group and we put together this ordinance template. I have redlined it and I handed it out today. I redlined it because there's certain options you have in doing an ordinance like this. One of which is to have the treasurer do the bulk of the administering of the processes. And other options include having a committee or a group to do that. In Kenosha County, a lot of the sale end of the work, if not all of it, is the county clerk doing that. So in order to bring it into line with kind of what we've done here, I inserted a group called the county tax group that would be an amalgam of a number of different departments in the county that are ready as a best practice look at what are we going to do? Are we going to go after tax delinquent property? Are we going to try to take a tax deed on it? Are we not? Because there are situations where it's not advisable to take a tax deed. But we also have to be aware that it doesn't look good. And I know we took a ding in our bond rating some years ago because we had a backlog of tax deed properties and we didn't take them, right? So we want to take them, judiciously and efficiently and all that, but we may not want to take every single property. So we need to be aware of things such as environmental issues with the properties, which, planning and development is important in helping us there. So anyway, what you'll find in terms of the group that would be administering this, if it's approved, this county tax group would be comprised of the treasurer, the county clerk. Terry Jacobson asked that I include corporation counsel and the director of land information because although we are more, I would say, troubleshooting / advising, we are involved in this. And then the director of planning and development or a designee within those respective departments. That's what I've put in there, and that would be consistent with what we've done in the recent past, is what we find to be a best practice for making these decisions about tax deeds. And it's also acceptable under the statutory scheme here. So most of this red line is inserting CTG, which is short for County Tax Group, which is that group of people to administer the repurchase right. And I also made a change from the template under number 5 here, inserting an approved real estate consultant for the appraisal, because although the committee could do that, we're not really experts in that area, but we have used a real estate consultant, as I understand it, I think to help us with valuing or appraising these properties. We need to do that and do a good job of that. So I did put that in there for some flexibility. Again, Terry Jacobson was supportive of that. I changed in 6A, making it that we'd look at the register of deeds for their last known address. That's actually statutory. That's the record you rely on in taking a tax deed, finding the address and notification requirements. We look at the records in the register of deeds. I think that's a good tweak or change. And basically, I think that covers the changes to the template. The template has been vetted with other counties and also with WCA, so I'm confident in recommending that this be adopted based on that. And I'm hoping that the committee will support this ordinance change. We need to have this in place. I was hoping we could have it in place by November. We have that SINDI coming up. And that's why we've been trying to get it expedited, get it here tonight to try and get it possibly approved. But if it's not, if that's not the comfort level of the committee, we can continue to discuss this or take it under advisement further. And if we can do this in December or January, that's acceptable as well. So that's the presentation.
Supervisor Gaschke. I remember the board a year or two ago made some changes to the ability for people to buy their properties back again, if I'm remembering correctly, right? We as a board deliberated over some changes to that process.
There was a situation where a couple of people wanted to purchase it back. And yes, there were some, it was kind of made, independent though of in rem. It was a veteran, if you're thinking of the same thing.
Yeah.
There was a veteran involved and another individual. But that was very, very specific and tailored to kind of fit those situations. And it didn't apply to properties taken in rem.
Okay.
Now we're taking pretty much everything in rem, which is a judicial proceeding. And so, that buyback really, it was kind of, it didn't really apply anymore.
Okay.
But this is required under this new legislation in that Act 207.
So I understand we need, as a county, to, we're state mandated to come into compliance with that. I understand that. I was just curious how these changes meshed with the former situation, but that makes sense because it's a different way of acquiring the property. So,
Well, it's really a different animal because this is mandated by the legislature. And it's also that there was a Supreme Court case in Tyler v. Hennepin County, US Supreme Court case that also was very concerned with municipalities not getting a surplusage, for example, on a tax sale, but protecting the rights of a prior owner where they don't owe, as much as the property is valued at toward their tax obligation and not taking that excess, not, unconstitutional taking.
Yeah.
So it's really sort of a different issues, so to speak, but, yes, this is now officially saying that for single family owner occupied properties, we have to allow repurchase within a certain time frame under the parameters that are in here.
okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Supervisor Gearston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to John, our Port Council. So, this policy looked good to me. I know your goal is to get it approved by November before we adjourn said die. And I'm remembering right, the US Supreme Court made a decision and then that rippled through the whole country. And that was why we had this law at the state. And so, it looked good to me. I remember when we had the Great Recession and then all of the buildup of all the tax delinquencies, and finance had to do some pretty heavy lifting with the other offices in order to get that through. And I didn't hear finance in there. I just want to be sure this has been exposed to the entire administration and everyone is accepting of the process that you built into that with the group that you have there.
Well, I know that this is how we have been taking tax deeds in rem in terms of making decisions on what we do take and don't take and working together on notice situations. This new surplusage, we had drafted a letter to notify people just to make sure that we're complying with the statute. I don't know, as far as I know, administration, and I'm not sure if I mean the county executive or someone else, I don't think they have a problem with how we're doing it. I can't say that I have talked to the county executive about this specific ordinance.
Through the chair to finance, are you okay with this?
I'm okay with this. Since that time, as you may recall, in 2017, one of the things that was requested of the treasurer was to give us a listing of the delinquent properties and those balances.
Right.
Finance committee gets that with your agenda every month and I keep an eye on that. So things have been going well. So if things continue to go well, I don't need to be, we don't have to necessarily have representation on the committee, but if we start to see something going backwards, then we'll reach out to them and see what's going on.
Thank you. That answered my question. I yield.
Can I add something that I forgot?
Well, why don't we let
Okay.
Reggie, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say that this, like John said, that group is the group that's been working on tax deeds. We go to John for legal advice. We'll go to planning for building, what condition the property is in. And then when we need help from finance, we go to finance. So
the bottom line is the treasurer and John do pretty much the first part. And then everything after the court gives the judgment, everything else is done through the county clerk's office. Now, I don't know how it's going to be done because there is a lot of demands now within this new law. Because it put in deadlines where in the past with tax deed, we didn't have deadlines. So as I have elections, I could, we could kind of put that off, put it off until we had a slower time because we don't have that many people. But this is definitely a much more demanding. And I think it's also good to have that in our ordinance, exactly what the time frame is. And instead of having to go look at the statute. So it's clear cut what the time frame is.
Anything else, Reggie?
No, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Speaking to Supervisor Geertson's comments, I want to point out that what I didn't decide, and I wanted the committee to weigh in on is in sub 9. Ultimately, if a property doesn't sell the first time around, we can come back and get a sale price. And it's it could be the county board that makes that decision or the committee, the finance committee. So I didn't know the will of this group. I suppose it could also be the committee, the CTG could also make that decision, but I wanted to see whether it should be, the decision here would be the finance committee, the county board, or the CTG making the decision if a property doesn't sell the first time around to set a lower price on it. Because that's something that in sub 9 is contemplated and needs to be decided. And in terms of oversight, if the finance committee wants some oversight, then it could come back to finance and it could even go to the board, the county board at that point. Or if there's confidence that, the county tax group can make the decision on that, then it could be designated to them. But, probably the finance committee or the county board would be the best to make those changes in the sale price if there's a failure to sell it at the first time around.
Supervisor Nato.
Well, personally, I would not want the CTG to make the final decision.
Pardon me?
Personally, I do not want the CTG to make the decision in there. I will be okay just with the finance committee. And probably that's good enough, but if we want to go to the board, then we'll be okay with that too. But I would prefer for the finance committee to make that decision at that point.
Anything else?
No.
Yeah, I don't think the county board should look at an unsold tax deed property. I think that should be done at the finance committee. That's where the heavy lifting is done. You can bring it to the committee. We can look at it. And that would be my opinion, my personal opinion. The committee has another one. Reggie?
I just would like to add to that. I think in the past, for the past years, all the years we've been doing this, or that I've been doing tax deed, I've always brought it to the committee. And I think that's a good accountability that we get feedback from, some of the supervisors, that there is oversight, since, especially since the finance committee is kind of like the oversight committee for my office. I think that this is, and I'm the one doing the sale. Ultimately, I don't want that full responsibility.
Okay.
I think it's good to share it with, to get,
We'll help you with that.
Yeah.
Reggie. Okay, Patty?
I just had a question because when we talked about this before, when we had the, how are we gonna set the value and everything, part of what I recall being discussed was if it didn't sell the first time, you had the authority to decrease the price by 10% and market it again. Does that not work with this new wording, or is that not a process that is working well?
Yeah.
It's not a process that's working well.
Okay.
The appraisals are coming in very high for the condition of the properties. And because of the law, we have to have that appraisal price, and, knocking it down 10% really isn't doing much of anything. And we're gathering too many properties. We're holding on to too many properties. And now the way, like when I came and talked to you guys before, this wasn't, Act 207 wasn't all complete. You know, changes have happened and they have allowed to make it a little bit easier for us to sell after that first attempt. But we just have to show good effort that we have tried to sell this property for its value. You know, we can't just give it away. But I don't think that the 10% at this point is of value. I think coming back to the committee is what I'm going to need to do. Okay, thank you.
We don't have to amend this. You can just put that language in there. Is that?
What I would do then is simply elect, finance committee here in the language.
Okay.
Then I would just fix that and submit a clean copy.
Supervisor Gearson.
Mr. Chairman, I would be willing to make a motion to approve the ordinance with the finance committee option in there and asking the question, is that the only option for us to vote on?
Well, yeah, the changes that, the template has been modified a little bit, so you've got that, but yes, that was the only thing that I wanted, I was hoping the committee would make a choice on.
I would be willing to make a motion to approve the ordinance with the option to come back to finance.
After the failure of a first sale.
Right.
It's been moved by Supervisor Gearston, second by Supervisor Gashford. Any questions or comments? I have some. So are our costs to the county any different in doing it this way? Are there any costs that we incur that are gonna be different or?
Beat by adopting this ordinance? No, I mean, this is, we have to, once we take the tax deed, we have to put it up for auction and sell it by law. And this is just, operationally, it's gonna tell us how we're gonna offer it back to repurchase.
So there's no ways that are hidden in here that we're gonna be holding properties, paying for them, doing anything different than we're doing now?
No, this is meant to expedite the processing and sale of these properties. Remember, this was all driven by the idea that, we need to get fair market value, that for the prior owner so that there's not an unconstitutional taking. So that's what drives this whole movement, if you will.
Okay. And my next question is gonna be on, and Reggie brought it up, the timeline. Can you walk us through the timeline real quick? Because it looks to me like within 120 days of the acquisition, we're coming up with a value, but within 60, or we have to provide notice to the former owner that they have a right to repurchase. I'm on page 2. And then under B, it says they have 90 days to let us know if they're gonna repurchase it. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm trying to line this timeline up. So could you square that away from?
Yeah, I mean, it's all coming out of the statute. So, within 60 days of taking the land, we have to let the prior owner know that they have this right to repurchase.
Mm-hmm. But there could not even be a price on it. Yeah.
There's we know the assessed value. They have 90 days, basically, the former owner, to notify of an intent to repurchase it.
Is that 90 after the 60 or 90 from the beginning?
90 from the time we take the deed.
So 30 days after we let them know, they have to let us know they're willing to purchase it.
If we waited the full 60, I mean, we should notify them very quickly after we take it.
Right. I would assume that would be the case.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it.
Right.
I believe, right?
Go ahead, Reggie.
So my process that I'm putting in place is within 20 days, we have to notify the former owner that they are entitled to any surplus proceeds if there are any. So at that same time, I am sending out the letter that says about the right to repurchase. Now, my understanding from everything I read, it is 90 days from the date that I send that letter out, not 90 days after the 60 days. Okay, so we don't want to wait till 60 days. We want to get that letter out and get that timeline moving fast.
But he just said it's from when we take it. You're talking about now it coming from the time you send out the letter.
Well, we have up to 60 days from the day we take the property to get that repurchase letter out. But like I said, my timing is, we're gonna do it as soon as possible, whether, you know, it could be 5 days after we take it. And I'm doing, I have an affidavit of mailing proof that, you know, that we've done this. And then it was my understanding that that starts the 90-day.
The 90 days comes from the date we acquire the tax deeded lands. That's the day we record it in the county's name. So that's when the 90 days starts running. And that's in the ordinance too. But, you know, the 60 days, that's what the statute requires, but I'm hoping that in practice, we're gonna be sending out that letter very quickly.
Yeah, it says up to, so, I mean, Reggie set up the timeline, fine, but as a whole, as someone in this situation, which, you know, I don't know that this is really fair to the county, but anyway, they still don't know what they're gonna have to pay to get it back. Because we have up to 120 days to get an estimate or get a number. So, I mean, you're gonna send this out, but at what point do we know the number?
The number is that they do not repurchase at the price, at the appraised price. They repurchase at the paying all delinquent taxes, interest, penalties, special assessments.
Very good.
And count,
All right. Okay.
so there are actual costs and estimated costs. So even the cost of the county employees' time, John's time,
Okay,
all that gets factored in. That's what they can purchase it back at.
all right, I'm cool with that.
And-
Those are
That answers all the questions that I
And
had.
also,
Very good.
they have to satisfy liens and judgments, yes, I mean, as well. It's another thing that's complicated here, but yes, that,
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments by the committee? It's been moved and seconded, so all we need to do is take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
thank you.
Pat, review and approve, county clerk, review and approval of changes to tax deed process. Oh, all around. Sale of landlocked tax deeded real estate, real evaluation of adjusting the auction bid amount after the first attempt to sell and appraised amount.
Hi, everyone.
Aye.
Hi, Reggie Waldora, the county clerk. When I had submitted for the agenda, I was not aware that we were getting that, so I only have a short part of all of that you just read. Supervisor Stocker had requested that we look into this particular subject that I'm gonna address. It is something that we were looking into, and we got I was going to come back to you guys with this particular idea. Not sure how much authority we had to do it, but the way that the changes have been made in Act 207, the county board has or the finance committee has the authority to do what I'm asking. I'm wanting to create a procedure that is approved by the finance committee regarding the sale of landlocked tax deeded parcels based on the provisions allowed in the statutes. So what is proposed is the sale of landlocked tax deed real estate. And we kind of talked about this, or John did, but the process for a second sale, if no bids are received at the initial auction, if the first attempt to auction a landlocked parcel at appraised value results in no bids at or above the appraised value, a Class 1 notice will be published with the minimum bid at an amount determined by the Finance Committee, but no less than the amount of the delinquent taxes, penalties, interest, as well as special assessments and other allowable costs per statute. Those allowable costs are like personnel time. The bid announcement may publish conditions, including preference to contiguous landowners as determined by the Finance Committee. All landowners that are contiguous to the landlocked parcel shall be notified of the tax deed sale. If no bid is received at the second offering, the parcel can be reviewed to set a new minimum bid by the Finance Committee. And so this is something that we do have the authority to do. And we have always, at least when I was doing it all myself, we had always sent out notifications to abutting parcel owners of all the properties, not just landlocked ones. So I included for you guys, I have 3 properties to start with that are landlocked. We took these before COVID, and we had held on to them because there was concern that 2 of them, that the person that we took it from had, it kept going into bankruptcy, and then we kept having to give the property back. So we didn't sell these back in 2018 because there was the threat of bankruptcy and this being included, and then we'd have to turn it back over. So now we've had them for a while, and we have interest in at least one of the parcels. And when we had the appraisal done, the appraisal came back at 18,000 each parcel, which seemed pretty high in the fact that it's landlocked. And so I put before you for each of these 3 parcels, what's owed to the county, and a breakdown of what those fees are, and what the minimum bid would be for selling these. And I'm looking for approval for us to set a price so that I can publish these 3 and try to get them sold.
Makes sense to me. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Supervisor Nudo, second by Supervisor Geertsen. Supervisor Nudo, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just, well, actually, I have a question, but looking at this, I guess it's the, I don't know, who does the appraisals? Do we go different appraisers or,
Well, I tried. There's a lot, no one wants to do it. I have one appraiser that is willing to do it and one realtor that has been willing to do it. This is not something they are really wanting. We're not getting like a lot of people like, yeah, let me do it.
is there a reason why that, or
Well,
do we pay,
We
market price?
We pay the price that they, so like for a vacant lot, it's $250 to get an appraisal. For the houses, it's $300. And actually the realtor was more. The appraiser is $250 and $300, and then the realtor was more, but we wanted to try it to see if we would come out with a different price, and it was the same. They're still coming out high.
Did we reach out to different appraisers or real estate?
I reached out to different appraisers. We called a couple of different realtors, and we have one that responded that they were interested in trying it.
Oh, stretch, you don't want any work, But
Supervisor Geertsen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the county clerk, Reggie.
Mhm.
So for the parcel ending in 003, we're authorizing 5,586.22.
That is the minimum bid to make the county whole.
So we're authorizing that.
That, or if you think it should be more.
Okay, but I think we're authorizing that number.
yeah,
Right, that's what she's
that's what
asking
I'm
us to do.
saying.
And then at 004, it's 7,659.25 cents.
Yep.
And then 005, it's 8,190.40 cents.
Correct.
Thank you. I yield.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? It's been, somebody, okay. Supervisor Stocker?
There's a power line that goes past some of these properties and down that power line. There's seriously large dead trees in there that are falling over, garbage in there. It just seems like it's a real liability for the county to hang on to those too much longer. That's something to think about. Just one.
Have we notified the power company about that?
It's not in the power line, it's in the trees.
Pardon me, say that again?
It's in the land, in these lots.
Okay,
So, excuse me, can you speak?
what?
Can I speak?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
One thing that I'd like to say, to Supervisor Stocker, at this point, these are the prices that we have to try on a second attempt to sell it. We've already tried to sell these properties at 18,000 and we got no bids. So this would be our second attempt, which would meet what the statute says, the minimum that's owed to the county.
If they don't sell it this time, I was trying to follow how you were working that down.
Yeah,
The third time, there's no restraints on us, correct?
I would refer.
Cause I didn't hear them, cause the second time you listed all the restraints, and then on the third time you said, and it comes back to the finance committee, but there were not all those restraints. So what do? Go ahead.
I don't think there's any restraints after that.
All right.
Because we made an attempt.
Well, yeah, we made
Yeah.
2 attempts. The value that people think it's worth, everything to make us whole. And now if we still can't sell them, we just gotta get rid of them. Okay. That's what I understood, and I was hoping that to be the case. Supervisor Stocker, do you have anything else?
I wasn't trying to get it lower than what the county's owed. I was just trying to get it.
Move it along. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
That's all.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
I just wanted to make clear the process. That was it.
Right.
That you guys couldn't say, well, let's, sell it.
Well, and actually, it kind of follows the process that we just had or
Exactly.
council explained to us, so
Mhm.
I'm fine with the whole thing, because it seems like we're lining everything up the way we should do it. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Audit of bills, did we all sign the bills? Did we all read them? Analyze them? Okay. All right, administration, what do we got?
There's nothing from human resources. Barney has the general fund report.
After that. Okay, all right.
All right, everyone should have a copy of the general fund year-end forecast. There are not a lot of changes from last month. I'll highlight a couple of them. The top line in the items causing increase to the general fund is the general fund investment interest, revenue surplus. Projecting that to be 500,000. So the 250 that we had last month. We're seeing better returns, and in fact, just today we met with our professional managers on the managed portion of our investments, and they stated that we had a very good third quarter, 2% return in that piece, and he's thinking that potentially the fourth quarter could be a 2% increase as well, which was good news.
When you're talking about us making more money, you need to project more.
That's cool.
When we owe money, you can kind of dwindle it down.
Down. My voice is a little scratchy today. But overall, the bottom line is pretty much the same as last month. A couple expenditures on the bottom part increased slightly. All the major departments, Public Works and Human Services all projected the same amounts as last month. So we're looking good from that standpoint, and of course, in the next following months, we'll be getting more year-end closer information and better idea of where we potentially could end up. With that, I'll yield to for any questions.
Any questions or comments on the general fund? Seeing none, we'll move on.
I have a very brief report. Last meeting, you approved my, appointment to the recruited board. And we met on Friday, October 4th.
I heard you were very excited about that.
It is a very interesting, time here in Kenosha County, when it comes to utilities. And it was a very interesting meeting. I kind of hit the ground running and wasn't quite sure that was what was gonna happen. Our agenda was fairly brief. There was a discussion on potential legislation related to the Wisconsin utility aid cap. Representative Ned Wesky was on the line. She joined the meeting and discussed with the committee the desire for any future legislative needs. Because she, as a representative, is hearing from Kenosha County that some of the towns, particularly the town of Paris, is reaching their utility aid cap. There are approximately 3 or 4 towns within the state that are reaching that cap. However, counties really are not. So the Wakuta members didn't think that this needed to be a priority for us to lobby for that, since the counties are not the ones who are facing this cap. Now, I did ask the room if they're having the same kind of growth in these areas that we are. And one in particular, I believe it was Columbia County, said yes, absolutely. But no one could tell me if those counties were close to their cap. So I'm doing some calculations on that now. I don't have that answer, but I will have that answer by the next meeting. The lobbyist that Wakuta has talked about the utility aid cap. And talked about expected legislation amending state statutes to recognize energy storage as eligible for utility aid payments. When the committee discussed its 25-26 legislative priorities, that is what we put at the top of our list. And we tend to call it battery storage here because that's what we're dealing with, but the Columbia County gentleman, whose name I don't remember, was very clear that we needed to say energy storage, because energy storage might not be batteries, but it should apply to anything that is impacting that. It was interesting to me, I actually drove through Columbia County after that meeting, not right away, but later, and I did not realize how many windmills they have up there. So they're experiencing a lot of wind, some solar, and liquid natural gas, which is also something that Paris has been approached about. So we're not so much in the wind area, but the solar and the liquid natural gas are things that here in Kenosha County we're experiencing, and the energy storage. The homework for the committee members was to check to see how close their counties are to the utility aid cap, to see if we want to make that a secondary priority for legislation. The president of the association has been around for a long time and has been on this board for a long time. And so he was very careful that we make sure that we are careful with how we spend our political capital, as he put it, which is kind of a new term for me. And that's why the committee kind of said, towns are experiencing this issue. This isn't a county issue. So the towns have a utility aid association as well, so that their association will pursue that. And the committee will meet again in January 2025.
Thank you. Nothing else? Can I have one to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Gearstead, second by Supervisor Nudo to adjourn. What do you want to comment on that? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.